Good evening. Welcome, everyone. This is the October 3rd, 2022 monthly meeting of the Concord School Board. I'm calling it to order, and as soon as you're ready, Ms. Cannon, would you please call the roll of attendance?
Absolutely. Mr. Richards?
Here.
Ms. Hastings?
Here.
Mr. Parker?
Here.
Ms. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Weinberg?
Here.
Ms. West?
Here.
And I am present. We have a quorum.
Seeing that we have a quorum, let's move on to the next item, which is the approval of this evening's agenda. Does anyone have any additions, modifications, or changes for tonight's agenda?
I do.
Ms. Hastings?
I would like to table the instructional committee item number 10 recommendation at this point.
Okay, are we tabling it indefinitely, or would you just like to delay this until
Next month?
next month?
Yes.
All right. Just for the record, you are the chair of the
I
instructional
am the chair of the instructional committee.
All right. Unless I have, is there any further discussion with regards to that?
Sorry, move the table till next month.
Yes. we're
Should I
moving-
second that? Does that need to happen?
Yeah, we can second that. Okay. And then, sorry, thank you. You went out of order on that one. Good, very good, Kate. Keep me honest. All right, so it's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion with regards to that item?
I'm still willing to give a report at that time, just not looking for not a vote tonight.
That's very good. Thank you. Not seeing any further discussion. All those who are in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so we will make that adjustment. Are there any other adjustments to tonight's agenda?
Yes.
Mr. Weinberg?
Update from the school board delegate assembly this past weekend, which could potentially be added on other business at the end of the meeting as like subpoint B.
Nope, very good. Is there a second? I
Second.
was going to say I will second it if no one else will. But all right, Ms. West. And thank you. Thank you, because I think everyone here would be interested in it. Is there any further discussion on that?
Where are we putting that?
We're going to put that at 12B.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor of that modification to the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we'll make that adjustment to the agenda to 12B. Does anyone else have any changes or modifications to tonight's agenda? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Weinberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Walsh, sorry. And I didn't recognize your voice, sorry.
It's a little muffled tonight.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we're set. Thank you, everyone. With that, we will move on to item number 3, which is our consent agenda. I assume everyone has had a chance to review the 7 items, I believe, that are on that. Does anyone have any corrections or modifications for our consent agenda? Anything to be pulled off of the consent agenda? In that case, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Walsh.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hastings. Without further discussion, all right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda is approved. Thank you, everyone. Item number 4 is celebrations, and quite frankly, I am unaware of what exactly the celebration is. So, Superintendent, I will defer to you.
Surprise. Actually, no. This year, there's been a real effort to improve classroom environment for some students up at the high school. and the access program, and I know that the team at the high school really worked hard with Matt and John to be able to put the facility together and have the kinds of equipment and just furniture, all of that, along with some renovations to the room to accommodate our students. So I thought it would be really nice to hear about that and the work that was done and the end result of that program. So I'm going to pass it over to, who's going to do this report?
I'll start.
All right, John, you go.
Thank you. I'd like to invite people to the table. Ellen, Carrie, and Jen, would you please join us at the table?
Welcome.
Thank you.
So I'll start, Carrie,
Okay.
and then I'll turn to you, okay? Does that work? And Matt, please.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Please jump in. Okay.
Okay.
So just a very brief outline, just what I'm going to do. So I think when I first came to Concord, Matt said, let's go on a tour. I want to show you around some of the facilities and some of the special ed facilities that are in Concord. So we got in his Jetta, which I used to own the same one, so it was nice to get in it, and we drove around, and one of our along the paths, we went by the high school access program. And I think that what I noticed was a room that was a great space, and a great concept, just lacked some of the fine tuning and the things that students need to create soft skills, and those skills that they'll need either through independent living or through if they go on to have jobs. And these are students who are multi-disabled. It's a program approved at our high school for that population. Both Carrie and Jenna are our two educators in there, and they work with both Michelle Speckman and Kara Comier as our two leads in the special ed department at the high school. So Matt, do you want to talk about kind of that visit and when we first kind of walked through some of the discovery we had?
It was definitely an eye-opener, and I was able, with John when we went up for the tour, it just put my perspective in a different lens. That room was original from the mid-90s, I believe, and there was a lot of wear and tear in it. But just by walking through with John, we went to Merrimack and looked at what John did down there as well for their access program. So we started getting some ideas. We worked with the staff, and we started this back in November of last year, and we went all the way through the process. So we have a nice finished product we want to let you guys talk about and show some pictures as well.
So before we go there, I wanted to turn it to Ellen, because how did we do this? How did we find the money in that quick time?
Can I have a mic?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so we received, as part of the American Rescue Plan, we received about $300,000 in excess of our usual IDEA funding, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So we get an allocation every year. This was money that we received on top of that for the express purpose of filling needs exactly like this. So we used 84% of that, to about $258,000 to do this renovation. And this is, I guess, the celebration part of it. We were really praised by the Department of Ed for, putting this money toward those one-time, one-and-done expenses that are going to maximize impact for students. So the sustainability plan for this is just general upkeep, and it actually may help us in the long run, because we'll have, we won't have a broken oven in a year, or we won't have, things like that. So it actually shakes out to I think, behoove us to have less of an impact on our maintenance and, repairs year over year. So they thought that was a great use of funds. It also gave us an opportunity to make sure that we're following all of the compliance rules. As I think I've mentioned before, construction using grant funds is very, very challenging. It requires a lot of documentation. So we put all of that into practice, got everything we needed, followed all the provisions around Davis-Bacon, which is fair wage provisions, things like that. And we actually came in under budget by $580. And so that money is going to be turned over to really help students figure out if they need, extra pots and pans in the kitchen area or office supplies or laundry detergent, things like that. That money will be used to kind of outfit the joint. So yeah, so that's the financial report. We're just tying up the invoicing right now. We got our last one today, so.
So
Thank you.
just quickly, as I said, this is our high school team. Carrie Zawick, Jennifer Looney, and Michelle Speckman and Kara were also along with us, with Karen Baxter, also who I didn't list, who was our OT. We all met a few times, looked at design planning. We met with the vendors from nuts to bolts multiple times, and then we picked out some really neat furniture, which I could say that's in there that really, I'm sure they'll talk a little bit by. But just quickly, before I turn to our high school team to tell a little bit about it, this was in November. You can see we had some interesting color schemes, a lot of things put there, some very just plain student desks. It really didn't have a lot of flavor. It was well done for what we had for resources at the time. But then when you can be creative, that's the same space right now that you just looked at. You can see a wonderful wraparound kitchen that has access for all students in there. A nice laundry room that is now sectioned off with dividers, so as Carrie or Jen are trying to speak to students and instruct, we don't have a washer and dryer going off in the same room. There's some nice spacing to that. You can see the technology now and tables for students and chairs, and then quiet areas over in Jen's room where students can have some independent privacy and work on what they need to work on, with either assistants or by themselves. So it was a nice little demo. So I will turn it over to both of you at this point.
Okay. Hello, my name is Kari Zwick, and I am a special education teacher in the Access program. I teach transition, which is 18 to 22-year-olds. We've extended it by a year now. They get to use this amazing room. I have to say, this was a real-life fixer-upper episode that we got to participate in from day one, with planning textures, colors, filter of the lighting. We got to be a part of it to make this happen. And you can see in the pictures, it's unbelievable that it's the same space that we had previously. Here's my colleague, Jen.
I work with students who are in grades 9 through 12, and I'm in the room next to Kari's. So far, it's been going so well. The students really have responded well to the changes, as well as the staff. The students really like the sofa area. It works out really well to give students a chance to visit before school, and they like having breaks there. They also really like having the meetings from the sofa area. In addition, I've been talking to the students about what they like about the new room, and the students that were there last year say that it is so much better. It's a lot nicer, as you saw in the pictures. Students also like the break space in the back of the classroom. In addition, the staff say that it's very comfy, and we really like the chairs, which are throughout the room at the different tables. One staff commented that it's a lot safer because if a student wants to bend back the chair, the feet don't leave the ground. In addition, we really like that the lights could be dimmed, as Kari mentioned. That's had a really good impact. And the workspaces that John mentioned, they help a lot. They help the students to focus on their classwork. And also, it's a really good place for testing. So there's so many different parts of the new room that the staff and students are really benefiting from.
I let my students know that they could fill something out. So I have Anders Hindley. He wrote, "I think that the new room is superb and it really makes you feel at home." So Anders wrote that. And then Madeline Ruby Ellis, she drew a picture of the famous egg chair that we now have 4. It's a break space. It's the colors of the room, which is very soothing. Greens, blues. I would like to thank Kara Cormier, Michelle Speckman, and our OT Karen Baxter, just to name a few. And my big takeaway is that this new classroom has enabled me to manage my students with so much more tools. They're able to have sensory regulation more in the comfortable chairs. So I already noticed an extended attention span. Students that were normally up and maybe wanting to take a bathroom break just to move are now using the chair to like rock back and forth. You don't tip. It's amazing to see this happening. It's a quieter room. The lighting also assists with managing the room. I really think it's going to profoundly impact the students' experience of instruction now. And they're able to have a filter in which they can take in the instruction without having the noise, the uncomfortable chairs that made screeching sounds, the tables that didn't move, now they roll. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for everyone who made this possible, including John Fabrizio, Matt Hassan, and Ellen, and all your hard work. And thank you also to Dan Lontas and the maintenance crew. Like Carly said, this room has had such a positive impact. It's really helping the students to focus more, and it's meeting their sensory needs in so many ways. In addition, we find that there are so many great places for the students to sit. So if one preferred place isn't available, they have other options. So thank you.
Right, on behalf of the board, you're very welcome, and thank you for coming in. This is such an impressive use of space, and it seems so conducive to, the further learning of the students, and I can see they'll be picking up a ton of skills. Ellen, thank you. I like to hear not only on but under budget, and for finding the money from somewhere else, so I think that's always impressive. But it sounds like a great, team effort all the way around. I can't wait to get down to see it. Josh is trying to think about Concord TV, lining up some, like fixer-upper episodes for you.
I wanted to have that picture where do the reveal.
Yeah, where you pull it apart.
It's literally that shocking.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
So yeah, I'm sure Josh will be following up down the road for expanded Concord TV coverage and programming. So anyone else have anything they'd like to pass?
Just a question. We've
Parker.
talked about the access program. We've talked around it. How many kids? Where do they come from? What are their ages? What's your, sort of, without going overboard on this, competencies that you want them to achieve? So how many kids?
So my students have, the students that I case manage most of them have earned their high school diploma, but they're not ready to go out into the workforce yet. They still need to work on social skills, behavioral management, and they stay with me now. They can stay up to the age of 22. So they just added an additional year for
How
us to.
many students are we talking about?
In my program, I have about 13. They come for different durations of the school day,
How long do they come for?
from 7:42 to about 2:42 in the morning, afternoon. So full day.
Oh,
I have a few students that are older that are kind of getting ready to separate. They come around o'clock, have lunch, and then we also have use of a white farm. So we have this beautiful room with this new kitchen, and kids bring in their laundry from home. Parents love it. They learn how to fold their laundry, do their laundry, separate the colors. They learn how to cook. We're making breakfast on Thursday.
Are these all Concord students?
Some are Deerfield, some
Okay, right,
are
but they're
Deerfield,
from
but
our
most are
district.
Concord, and it's our most significantly.
So there's 13 of them? Is that,
I have at least 13.
how
And
many
then,
total
but
kids are in the
our
program?
program's much bigger.
Oh, yeah.
I currently have 12 students on my
Okay.
caseload, and they're in grades 9 through 12.
Okay,
So they mostly go to regular classes, but they also have prep with me, and they go to other prep classes.
okay.
And we're working on all their different IEP goals and then supporting them in their regular classes.
Thank you for that.
And David, I have to tell you, we just got the walls of Dos Amigos for the month of December. The Access Transition students that are interested in doing visual arts and working in the arts and graphics. So make sure you guys go in the month of December. Support your local.
Thanks for sharing that information to the public,
Students.
because I don't think people always know what we're talking about. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Ms. Cannon?
I just like, I mean, I think it's fabulous. I took a tour just last week, and the difference is just amazing, including access to places that previously were inaccessible, had stairs in them, even though it was in the access room. But I'd like to encourage perhaps the use of some of that excess that we came in under budget on looking at countertop appliances, teaching kids to cook with a rice cooker, teaching not just the stove and the oven, but the rice cooker, the slow cooker, an Instapot maybe, because that's where a lot of young people these days, that's their I mean, I hate to say ramen noodles, but you could do ramen noodles in a rice cooker. It's not always, I know for some people, the oven or the stove is intimidating, whereas a crock pot isn't, so.
Want to go shopping with us?
Yeah, Gina, you can go shopping with them. We did have some like pots and pans. They had some scratches. They probably weren't the best to use, so we did get an order of induction cookware that is steel. But
Can add the rice.
and we have an air fryer, but we need to definitely do more crock pot.
Well, imagine all those parents who would love to come home at the end of a workday and their kids got crock pot dinner for them.
Mr. Weinberg?
So just for orientation wise, is this the room right off of Main Street and the orange carpet area? No, it's different.
Near automotive.
Oh, very cool.
We have an outdoor area called the courtyard, where a lot of people relax, and we're right next to the courtyard, next to automotive.
Awesome. Thank you.
Ms. West?
Your testimonials specifically about how this change impacts the student's ability to achieve academic success resonates with me specifically because I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD till I was out of high school. And when I hear that and I see it, I understand what it's like as well to, if your environment is organized around you, you're way more successful in managing everything. And so I wonder if we, and this is my responsibility and I'm looking to Gina, if we have specific policies in place that make sure there are levels of accessibility like that in every classroom, in ways that we can ensure that kind of access, especially when we're talking about things like lighting and the ability to adjust and.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a policy, but I would actually throw that to Matt. My sense is we don't have dimmable lights in every classroom. I think that the and Jim's going to appreciate this for the taxpayer, but I know that the differential between dimmable CFL and regular or dimmable.
I guess I don't mean necessarily a policy that dictates there's dimmable lights in each classroom, so much as I mean policies that dictate how we make sure to meet the accessibility needs of all of our students. And I understand that we do that with IEPs, but I think that a room like that in the beginning shows that there are a lot of ways that we could, in general, probably improve. If that was the state of that classroom, right, I'm sure that there are other classrooms that are set up in that way, and that we have students that could be achieving more academically if we made sure that there was a baseline for how those classrooms were organized, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, I guess I would have to throw that to some extent to Matt and also to John about, students 504s and what kind of accommodations they actually need. Because I don't know that every student needs those accommodations, but obviously those students that do need to have them.
So this is probably something that will involve, I'm guessing, Capital Facilities Committee, and they will come back to questions for Mr. Cashman as well as Mr. Fabrizio as to, whether, what steps we would need to take to make sure that all our classrooms are accessible to all of our students, which was, of course, our goal. And I think has been for a while, but sounds like there is always opportunities for some improvement on this. So I invite the administration to talk to the Capital Facilities Chair with regards to this, and we will maybe revisit this in a meeting in the future. Thank you, Ms. West. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right, thank you for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of the hard work you do, and please pass on our thanks to the other members of your team who couldn't be here this evening, and that includes you, Mr. Fabrizio, Mr. Cashman. I know that our custodial staff is always involved in these items and do 110% on those, so thank you very much. I appreciate you coming in today. Thank you, Superintendent.
It's a good example of things working.
Yes, great teamwork. Thank you very much.
The kids picked out that egg chair, so.
And you kept it under budget. Thank you very much. So, very good. Superintendent, what do we have next?
Well, next we have on your agenda for tonight is a Charter Commission report, and we're pleased to have Bill Ardinger, here tonight to review the final report, and the warrant articles are in your handouts for tonight. So, Bill, you want to join us up front?
Thank you, Mr. Ardinger. I see that we also have some other Charter Commission members here, and we appreciate them coming as well.
You can all join us, Tom and Betty.
First of all, let me thank you for all your hard work over the past year, or very close to a year. Much appreciated, and thank you very much for, your final report, and I'll let you have the rest.
Good evening. My name is Betty Hoadley. Some of you know me. And I noticed one laughing because she was a former student of mine. But at any rate, I'm a Concord resident and have been for many years. I'm also a Concord taxpayer and have been for many years, exactly 60 if you can believe it. But I'm not here to talk about finances tonight. Aren't you happy? Aren't you happy? Because I'm here to talk about policy and law, and I'm not going to talk. That's the best part of it all. However, I would like to introduce my two colleagues here. This is Tom Croto, and Tom was one who sat on the school board when I always started with, and I've been a taxpayer for so many years. And I'm keeping track, and you may too as well. Tom has been a very faithful member of our group. He's a former school board member, very interested in our work, and very helpful on the committee, and he's here again tonight as he was in the meeting with the superintendent some months ago. But the star of the show tonight is Bill Ardinger, and Bill is a longtime friend. The name Ardinger will ring a bell. His wife Cash was a school board member here. I know Bill from, Board of Trustees, and then also the Charter Commission from 10 years ago. Seems like only yesterday. The only trouble with Charter Commission is there is no blueprint. There is no way to start. There is no format to a meeting. So when you run that kind of meeting, I'll tell you, you have to be looking and checking and seeing whose hand is up and whose hand is down and who's with us and who's not. But we never had a problem. We just got along famously. I brought these books tonight just to impress you. This is about 1/4 of what I used to carry around in my bag. But the amount of paper that we generate is not a measure of our success. The amount of paper indicates that we worked hard and we had a lot of reproduction of paper. But the real item is, what are the outcomes? And Bill is the master of that. Bill has such a pleasant manner, and he's such a, how shall I say, absolutely superb lawyer, that we have entrusted so many jobs to him, and he takes them all on and asks for more. You're a glutton for punishment. Without any more discussion, and you're going to be happy, I'm going to be quiet as most. Bill Ardinger, you're up, and here's the microphone.
Pop this mask down just a little while I'm talking. You can see the things. It's great to see all of you, many of whom I've known for a long time. And it was wonderful to hear the presentation you just had made to you. I can't imagine a better use of those important federal dollars than to improve your capital plan for the students who need that support. And so this is going to go quicker. It's much more esoteric. It's not as connected to meaning, but it's still important. And so there is a presentation which is up on the screen, and you may have received it in your materials. I'm just going to go through that. And what I'd like to start with before we turn into it is just make sure that we know that the charter for the Concord School District is just like a constitution. So that's kind of the analog that we're talking about. It is not long. It doesn't set policies like what buildings should be or what curriculum should be, but what it sets are the basic rules for how this body, this Concord School District, shall govern itself. So that's what we were focusing on, those basic rules. Very few times will you need to look at those rules. You will be focused on more important things. But where the charter can become important is when there are conflicts. And as you know, across the country, there's more and more conflicts in elections, in governance, especially for public school boards. And so our task, this particular charter commission, was really come to the table to make sure the rules for this unbelievably wonderful public school district were clear and were clean, and that they were ready to navigate through waters that hopefully will never get as controversial as they have in some other school districts across the country, but they could. And so we, even though some of the changes that we'll walk through quickly are technical sounding in nature, the Charter Commission members, 9 of us who met together for almost a year, believe that they're very important to secure the Concord School District and the mission of the Concord Public Schools in the future. And we hope through this presentation to make sure that this school board understands where we went with the changes and also supports them, because we're moving towards an election in November where these changes will be presented to voters, and if 3/5 of those voting say yes, these amendments will be adopted and the charter will be upgraded to reflect them. So with that general background, we'll work through this pretty quickly. The first, on page 2 there, thank you. Who's flipping that? Must be Don. I appreciate
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
I like that. Listen, this point in this slide is that Concord School District is the most unique school district in the state of New Hampshire. our history goes back into the late 1800s, and the legislature established the charter, the state legislature, for this school district. And right from the beginning, we were unique among school districts. We were a city. We were not a town. Towns had town meetings. That's the governance legislative body for towns is the town meeting where everyone gets together, they have a moderator, not Concord. It was rolled up into the Concord Union School District. And in 1961, the legislature clarified the governance structure for this school board. So the school board really has roots into 61. Importantly, the Concord School District as a governmental body is autonomous, is independent, is fiscally independent, is governmentally independent from the city of Concord government, which has the council and others. And that makes us very unique. Other cities in the state would desperately love to have their public schools have a governmental body that would focus on schools like you do and have that power. City of Manchester tried to get that and couldn't. They couldn't get all their constituencies and stakeholders. But this city has always benefited from that in the school district. In 2010, there was a charter commission that Betty Hoadley, our chair this time and last time, was on. And the number one thing about that 2010 Charter Commission was that we were able to present to the voters a recommendation that would say, if there are going to be new changes in the future to these rules that govern the Concord School District, they will not be made by the state legislature and representatives from Merrimack, from Nashua, from Portsmouth, but rather by the Concord voters. That was a very big achievement in 2010. There were other rule changes, but the big change was that. And it was overwhelmingly approved by the voters of Concord. That charter included an automatic review 10 years after it. And that's what we just did with our charter commission. And the point about this is that the history of this document is very important, and the uniqueness of Concord Public Schools and its governance structure is also something that's very important. Our process, as the chair, Chair Richards mentioned, we elected 9 members from the city at the election in November of '21. We had our organizational meeting right after that, and ultimately, after 17 public meetings and working with the state, you'll see more about that, we got to our final report, which the school district received on June 21st, 2022. We adopted the report on June 20th. What does the report recommend? The report recommends essentially 5 amendments. The first amendment is very easy. There are things in the current charter that you're operating under that refer to 2012, and there's other things like the establishment of the Charter Commission automatically, the calling a vote that was in there. Those kind of obsolete references that are not necessary anymore are proposed to be deleted. That's easy, and we're hopeful we will get a positive response from the school board when you look at it, and also from the voters. The second, there was a confusion in the current charter where we're comprised of an at-large district and also the school district, but then there are also voting areas, which are combinations of wards. Those are also called districts in the current charter. So when we have new members who are on our commission, they said, this doesn't make any sense. It didn't, and so changes were made and proposed that would clarify that the district language refers to the school district as a whole, and when you're referring to those smaller conglomerations, wards, those are referred to as school voting zones. In addition, when we did that, we clarified what happens upon a vacancy in the seat of a school board member. Believe it or not, the current charter was silent on that. so this clarifies that. Third amendment, each of you as members, and my wife, when she was a member of the school board, receive a stipend. The stipend is set, the way it refers in the current charter, whatever the city council member gets, school board members get. And who sets that number? The city council. And so the charter commission thought that, like the city council having the power to set stipend amounts, the school board should have the power to set stipend amounts for its members. So that's what this proposal does. Importantly, it does not allow people to vote on an increased stipend or a lower stipend and have it immediately take effect. It only takes effect after the following election. This is similar to the city of Concord. So hopefully this amendment will also be seen as important. The school board has a responsibility, the charter commission felt, to set that number, whatever the right number it feels should be, and not have a separate governmental body. We don't think that the government of the United Kingdom should set it's have the governing body set those standards. Amendment 4. We had a way in the charter currently, it went on for about 15 pages, to how you would change the charter in the future. It was largely based on statutory law at that time in 2010. Statutory law changed between 2010 and now. What the Charter Commission agreed to do is recommend that we should do what almost all other governing bodies do in New Hampshire, which is just refer to state law in the statute and say whatever's in state law for how you change the charter document in the future, that should be the way it works in the future. So it went 15 pages down to a simple couple of paragraphs. There are a couple of differences, which we don't need to go into the detail now, but like a super majority vote for certain, which I'll refer to briefly, but no other changes. These all went to the state officials, the AG's office, the Secretary of State, and the Department of Revenue Commissioner, and ultimately the report before you and these amendments have received the approval of the state. Finally, we made a change to how the treasurer and the clerk are to be selected for the school district. Right now, under the current charter, they are elected. This is because the state has taken a position that we're like a town. And so the town statute requires school districts, town school districts, to elect a moderator, a treasurer, and a clerk. And they do that at their town meeting. We don't have a town meeting, Concord School District. We have a school board with elections. And so we said, what the school board should be allowed to do is appoint their treasurer and their secretary, just like other cities do that have staff, professional staff. The state disagreed with us. They said, we agree with you in principle, but we think the school district town thing should apply. And we said, I think our representatives will want to change that. If the representatives change it in the future, meaning Concord representatives go to the legislature, they say, we're going to clarify this, the city of Concord can appoint a treasurer, and this, in that case, automatically this change would allow that change to take effect. So this is really anticipating the possibility, but right now, the treasurer and clerk must be elected at elections rather than appointed. Yes, Jonathan.
Was legislation filed this upcoming year for that?
It has not been filed yet, but there are several legislators. It's important to note that the Charter Commission has no power right now. We're here as citizens, and it is for the school board to consider that policy, our elected school board members, and decide whether they think this is an important issue.
Thank you.
The Charter Commission has lost its oomph. On the next page, and we've only got a couple more, the local amendment procedure, I'm not gonna go through it now, but it allows the city of Concord voters, and remember, the school district geography lines are different than the city of Concord in a couple of key areas like around Pennacook and stuff like that. So that's why, another reason why we're unique and we're different. But if in the future, under this amendment procedure, which we're referring to in the statute, you can change the rules of the charter by a petition effort. This school board can vote to propose amendments to the charter, and that's in here. And finally, the voters, no matter what the petition says, no matter what a charter commission says, no matter what the school board says, it's got to go to a vote of the voters. And in that case, the vote has to be 3/5 of the ballots cast. This is the statutory procedure that exists in RSAs. If the legislature were to change that in the future, this amendment would automatically piggyback that, which eliminates legal confusion. So let's get to the fun ones on page 6. Which topics did the state object to? And the first one, folks, this is the most important one. The Charter Commission unanimously recommended that the charter should include a provision that says candidates for school board election should file reports of their campaign finance the way that other candidates do, like for the city and charter commission candidates we had to file, and state legislative, people, and federal as well. They all have to file. Why? Because that transparency is important to inform voters just what's going on with each candidate. And we felt strongly. The state, in a way that we were very surprised by, came back and said, Concord School District does not have the power to impose that requirement because the statute doesn't permit it. It's fair to say that the Charter Commission disagrees with that conclusion. Our lawyer for the Charter Commission disagreed with that conclusion, but as I say, we're no longer in a position where we have any authority. What we would do, and it happened in a vote in the Charter Commission, is that we strongly urge this body to make this a priority issue because our elections, knock on wood, have been pretty good and pretty secure so far, but if a controversy were to come, this could be important information that voters should see. What each candidate is spending, where they're getting their contribution, but it is not in these amendments. And it's not in these amendments because the state objected. The second objection, we looked carefully at the vacancy issue, as I mentioned. And what we first said is, if there's a person elected from one voting zone, and they move within the city of Concord to another voting zone, we propose that they stay on the board until January of the following, after an election, to allow the voters of that ward, that district, that zone, that's lost a person, to elect a new person. The state disagreed. The state said what you have to happen, as soon as the person leaves the voting zone, their seat on the board becomes vacant. And this board then has the power under the charter that's proposed and that the state agreed to appoint a substitute person from that voting zone to fill that vacancy until January after the election, where the new person who'd been duly elected would take over. So this particular one, we understand why the state objected to it, and it was okay. I've already talked about the third objection, that the treasurer and clerk, we propose that they should be appointed by this school board governance system. They objected, and we did not go forward with that. We think that may be something that this board should focus on with the area's legislative representatives. Finally, we proposed in a couple of cases to have higher petitions, higher number of signatures with petitions for changes to the charter, because we're a city and we have many, it's tied to voters. And so when we have an off-year election, there are fewer voters, and that means that the number for petitions gets very low. The state objected, and we did not pursue it in court. That's the 4 objections that were made by the state are listed there. Of these, please, the first one we believe as a charter commission, or we did believe as a charter commission when we existed, that it is the most important one. On page 7, what things did we consider in our discussions but not recommend? There has been no change to the fiscal autonomy status, the independence of the Concord School District in our proposals. That was viewed unanimously as a very good thing for public schools. No change in the number of board members. You have 9. It was agreed that it should stay the same. No change to election time. People saying various things, change it to 2 years, change it to just the non-state elections. In general, people liked having many voters vote on Concord school board members, so we did not vote to change any election timing from the current charter. And no change to district zone voting. That is district zone voting the way you have 3 members who are elected up to the board at large and 6 elected from smaller zones. There is a change in future charter commissions. This charter commission was elected the same way as the school board is. In referring to the new statute says very clearly that charter commissions, not school boards, but charter commissions must be elected at large. So in a future charter commission, all 9 members will be elected at large, and that applies even in cities like Manchester, which have ward voting. And if they have a charter commission elected to consider changes to their charter, it must be every member elected at large. And so that was, the state pointed that out to us, and we ended up going along with it. It's now in your hands. You're already preparing with your clerk the questions for the ballot. We recommended in our final report questions for the ballot, but I know Patrick Taylor has been working with teammates here. Then the ballot will be presented at the election, and we'll count votes. If I would close with anything, and I turn it to my fellow members, number 1, we did have a wonderful time together. It was a great group of people, and we were all in agreement that the precious jewel of this community is the public school system. And we all worked hard to try and think about how we could work to get it, even though there's no splashy, sexy, proposals here. We think they are very important to weather storms that might occur that could jeopardize this jewel for the community. We would urge this board to consider these carefully, consider recommending them to the public, but it's not our place to say so. And because we don't exist, but we want to say thank you for the opportunity to work on this district. And I can't thank Betty Hoadley enough for agreeing to chair the second charter commission. I also served on the one 10 years ago. It's meant a great deal to me, and working with her has been a joy. She has really helped us get through this process, so thank you very much.
John, you want to say a few words?
I do.
Good.
First of all, it's nice to
I
be
said
back.
a few.
Nice to be back, on this side of the table especially. But I just want to reiterate that Betty and Bill too provided such great leadership. But you had 9 persons on that board, that commission, and they had the best interests of this whole district and the city in their hearts every darn meeting we had. Sometimes we would talk things a little more vigorously, and other times we would agree to disagree, and other times we actually agreed. But they always had this district and this city in the best interest. And the other thing was, it was very dear to us at the very beginning to make sure that this board continued its fiscal autonomy. So important, and I'm kind of editorializing here a little bit, but it was very important for all of us, for you to have that ability. And I think that that's all. I just wanted to chime in with those things. I feel like the cheerleader on the committee sometimes, but we did a good job. We did have a good time. We learned a lot. One of the reasons I wanted to get on that commission was that I wanted to sit in a room with people who really cared about this district and high intellect, and both of those goals were met. It was great.
Don't think this is as bland, the things that you're voting on. It's not bland at all. It's been hammered out. Bang, 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 bang. I've got a few bruises to show for it. And it also, you have to remember what's not there, not an issue, and you both referred to it. The autonomy is still here. And I can't make you feel more pressured when I say it's your job to continue that autonomy doesn't come up through a petition or some other way. In other words, if you do things that just don't listen to the public and you misuse your autonomy, you could lose it. Do I sound like a mother? Well, I am. And I'm a mother and a grandmother and a great-grandmother, so I've had a lot of different generations to whom to give my advice, and I give it freely, as you can well imagine. But seriously, the blandness, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. And then if you think about, well, boy, we dodged a bullet. They didn't put in anything about this or that or the other thing. You're right. But that doesn't mean we didn't discuss it. Oh, we discussed it and we discussed it. We went on ward zone voting for about 4 meetings, at least an hour each, to the point where I was ready to go home prematurely. And so I hope that you see in here that there's an awful lot of work, an awful lot of thought, and many of the members of the commission were former school board members or knew other people that were or had followed it. And so as far as I was concerned, the group that was assembled was diverse, not only in location, but in opinion. But we came together and we got the job done. And so now, hey, have a ball. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hoadley. And thank you, Mr. Ardinger, for your presentation. Mr. Croto, as well as all of the other Charter Commission members who are not here this evening. I guess I'd also thank the citizens of Concord for electing such a good group, a group that was so dedicated. I had the pleasure, of being able to testify in front of that group, as did many other citizens of Concord, and I appreciate your efforts and the many, many meetings that you held. I will report to you, as was required by us. We have published the final report and posted it in all of the appropriate locations, as well as on our website, so it is fully accessible to the citizens of Concord. And I hope they all read it in detail for the vote that will be coming up in November. Also, I can tell you that the administration has worked with the city to make sure that your ballot questions are printed and will be on the ballot as you approved them and recommended them. This board can vote to endorse or recommend those ballot questions, but regardless of what we do, they will appear for the citizens of Concord to make that decision, as is statutorily required, but is also a good thing, a very good thing for our community. So I will thank you. Other board members, anything else you'd like to add? Yes, Ms. Walsh.
I just have a question, but thank you so much for all your work, and I talked to some of you during this process, and I know how hard you're all working. I had a question about question 2, recommending that interim members serve until the calendar year as opposed to the newly elected person taking office immediately. And I was wondering if you could explain that recommendation, the thought behind that recommendation.
That exact, thank you very much, Pam. That exact issue came up and was discussed at length. And we had the benefit of having the attorney for the Charter Commission at the table. And the question was just, how does this process work? The election's in November, then you end up having a new person who is certified to have won the election, and there they sit. And when do they take office? The statute seems to contemplate that the new person would take office at the commencement of the new year, which is in January. And so, like, you have today a lot of elections, in November, but it's not till January that the new legislature takes over. And so in this case, the suggestion was that the right answer is that you would have the person who's a substitute person appointed by this board would serve out the balance of the term of the member whose seat went vacant.
Okay.
And then would be filled.
Now I have a second question based on that. The balance of the term or the balance of the calendar year? Because someone could resign, if someone resigned in the first year, are we saying that an appointed person will serve 2 years?
Go to the next election.
Or
To
to
the next election.
Okay, so if somebody's.
You're required to have that election.
Okay.
That was very clear.
Okay, you said balance of the term, that's what.
Exactly. Sorry.
So we're saying the statute requires that they don't start until January? Because if a state rep resigns, once a special election is held, they fill that
They can be
seat
sworn in to fill the
immediately.
seat. In this case, that's the discussion that we had at the table.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Other questions or comments? All right. Thank you very much.
you. Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for giving us that opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, at this point, I believe that we have the warrant articles that will appear on the ballot. They will appear on the ballot regardless of what this body does. However, the Charter Commission did ask us if we would, to consider voting to recommend those or endorse those. So at this point, I will entertain a motion to do so if anyone would like to make it.
I was going to say, can we move that until after the public comment?
I think that's excellent suggestion. If nobody has any objection to that,
Are we having non-public this evening, do you know?
I don't believe so. So, unless I am wrong, Superintendent, I don't believe we have that this evening. So, would we move that to after item number 7, which is public comment? And I'll make a motion to move the discussion of warrant articles 5A2 to just after item number 7. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we will vote on those, or I will entertain any recommendations or motions to vote on those after item number 7. Thank you all. And with that,
I apologize for interrupting.
Yes.
May
pardon me.
I make a motion that we do have a non-public and that we move that vote to after the non-public?
For recommending these articles? Certainly you can make a motion to do that. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Seconded by, any discussion? Yeah, take your time to catch up.
So we have a motion to request a non-public, and that the discussion
Do they have to
on
be two
the
separate
warrant.
motions?
I don't think so.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, does anyone really want them split into two motions?
No, I
or can
think
just-
we-
Okay, thank you.
And that the vote, yeah, would happen after the non-public instead of after the public comment.
Excuse me, just need to have a reason to going into non-public.
Yes, we
Now,
will.
it's in your
And
book, so if you have one.
So,
It's in right at the
But I don't
beginning
think
of
we
your
want
book.
to do that now. We're motioning to request a non-public, but when we go into non-public is when we have to do the motion with the explanation.
that will be such. So, and I guess at this point for housekeeping items, we have a motion to move this into after public comment, and I think there's an amendment to that to have us meet in a non-public session just prior to that discussion. Am I correct?
I just put them in two different motions.
Two different
Is that
motions?
okay?
Well, we'd have to vote for the move it. Yes, let's
We
just do
did
it
already.
into.
We're
Okay.
the- we're-
Oh, we did move that. So yes, let's make it, so we made it 7.5, or for lack of better.
Right.
All right, so we have the motion now to do a non-public session prior to that discussion. And
So that would be a 7.
0.25 if you want to get into that
Point
numbers, but,
whatever.
okay. And so that motion has been made and seconded, and
I'm sorry, who moved and who seconded?
it
Kate
was
moved. and
moved
who-
by Ms. West and seconded by Mr. Weinberg.
Okay, thank you.
So, further discussion. Not seeing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so the order of the agenda will be the financial report by Mr. Dunn, public comment by anyone in the public, a non-public session, and then followed that by the discussion of warrant articles, and then we will continue on to personnel. Am I accurate with regards to the schedule? All right, very good. So that has all been moved. So at this point, Superintendent, we are up to our student report, I believe, correct? Very good.
They're ready. I talked to them before the meeting started, and they're ready to give their monthly
Sophia,
report.
Finn, it's all yours.
Hi, everyone. A lot of the seniors are thinking about the future right now, whether that be college applications or a career or anything else like that. The PSATs are coming later this month, and there were SATs this past weekend at the high school. And the National Honor Society is going to be hosting a Halloween event for the community at the high school on the 23rd. I don't know all the details, but I know that's being planned. There's going to be events and things for the community, so I'm sure there'll be information about that, but I don't know yet.
Very good.
Hello and happy October. Adding to what Finn said, we had a great September. The homecoming dance was a few weeks ago, and we won. Yay, Crimson Tide. And we enjoyed, it was enjoyed by quite a good portion of the student body. The parade was also a hit and had many participants. We had our first pep rally, which had many games, and it was a great way to have some school spirit right before the game. This was also a new experience for many because there hasn't been a pep rally in the school since before COVID. The club fair was also mentioned last meeting. It was a great success. It was a fantastic way for students to get more involved in the school community. Clubs have begun their meetings, and student governments have completed their elections. Academics are fully underway, and I think students and teachers alike are ready for this long weekend coming up. And thank you. I'm excited to have a great month.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you both. And I will add that and correct me if I'm wrong, I understand that Principal Reardon made an outstanding catch during the pep rally. Although his eligibility, he's not eligible for the team. His eligibility is new stuff, but very good. Thanks. Sounds like we had a really great September, and I look forward to a great October as well.
That was great. That was great. It was all over Twitter too, wasn't it? Him catching the ball. The next section of the agenda is something that we've been working on. I thought I'd take a little bit of time. Jack's going to put it up on the screen for me, and that's the goals and objectives for the strategic plan. You know that we've been working on this for about a year. We've been delayed, obviously, given all of the issues last year that we had. But Jack, could we go to the strategic plan goals first, please?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. And so you know that we have been working on this. Two members of the school board have been serving on that, on a planning committee, along with some folks in the district.
You want the strategic plan? Sorry.
Yeah, the strategic plan, Jack. In your packet, I'll start off with equity and diversity. That was a goal that the committee.
Is it priority or goal?
Well, it's a priority. Priority one was equity, and under that would be the goals for equity and diversity. It's up on the screen now for you and for the community. You remember these things were arrived at through nearly 20 focus groups that were held throughout the year last year, and that included stakeholders across the district, from community folks to parents, teachers, students, our staff, administrators, central office staff, bus drivers. Every facet of the organization had an opportunity to participate in the focus groups, and that's where we garnered a lot of information. In addition, we had a survey that went out and collected additional information. So using that data, we began to put together those essential priorities for the school district, and then from those priorities develop some goals. So if you look at equity and diversity, you'll see the first goal for the district we're recommending is around an equity audit that will help us to understand what areas that we need to address. And on this chart right next to it are the objectives of which we will work to achieve that particular goal under the equity priority. I'm not going to read every one of them. You've had them. If in fact tonight you're comfortable with what we have, then we will post this tomorrow on the website, on the district website, for the community to see. Second goal was to identify partnerships in our community that support equity, diversity, justice, inclusion, and a sense of belonging. And again, if you look on the other side, you'll see some of the objectives that we will be trying to achieve. Now, understand that this all can't be achieved in 1 year, and that your strategic plan will be a 3 to 5 year roadmap, if you will, for you to use in all aspects of the work in the district. The third goal will be to eliminate barriers and stigma associated with diversity. And again, we listed some objectives around safe places for students to share, objectives like integrating and promoting a diversity coordinator for the district, and opportunities for us to advocate for equity. And the final goal in that area is around professional development. And as you know, and you've been very good about supporting professional development in terms of all of our staff training. It's critical as we move forward. Now, I left goal 5 because I wanted to make sure that you all had a chance to add anything that you think maybe through all of your work that we missed. So we left it. The committee asked us to do that, to give the board a chance to add anything that you thought was pertinent to equity.
I just have a quick question. Was the entire action plan matrix shown to the committee, and they parsed out and chose individual goals from those 11? Because the matrix plan from the advisory.
Well, the matrix plan was used in to
do it.
address
So,
this.
yes.
Yes, yes. I wasn't sure which matrix you were talking about, but yes.
So I hate to be the squeaky wheel for this, and I understand the primary purpose of this, but I don't want to lose inclusion for students with disabilities and the intersectionality between diversity and inclusion of students with disabilities. Often in looking at equity, it's left on the side. And so I really want to make sure that we fold in those students as well.
You know, when we talk about equity, you're absolutely right. You know, and we think about it in not just racial equity. We think about it in when we think about economic, social, emotional. We think about all of those areas, poverty, as part of that. So it isn't just about racial equity for us, and so I think specifying that in these goals will be helpful to be more articulate in it.
Thank you.
I'm going to continue, so if you need to stop me. The second priority was around curriculum instruction assessment. We broke it out into 3 areas. The first area in curriculum, and very, very important across the district, was to make sure that we develop consistent competencies and make sure that it was a K-12 system, not just for primary, intermediate, middle, high school, but that we have a alignment of competencies that reflected grades K through 12. And you can see that we have a number of ways in which, objectives in which we will achieve that. From development of alignment of those, as you know, that we're already in that process right now. Quite frankly, we've been working on it for over a year, particularly in the area of math. Next up will be social studies and science and language arts we've been working on. So those are in process, and we will continue to do that work. Second goal was access of curriculum, equitable access for all students, and that included, again, universal design, which is a program we use in the district, achieving the results of our curriculum work for all students. Pathways, which is, as I think you've heard the folks from the Career and Technical Center talk about pathways, that we want to move that down to grades 6 through 12. Cross-cultural content, making sure that curriculums reflect the different cultural aspects of our community. Again, I'm not going to read all of the objectives, but certainly these are all familiar to you. And last, establish a process for ensuring that Career and Technical Center remains innovative in offering students relevant and applicable experiences. So over the next few years, we'll be looking at the programs that are offered at the Career and Technical Center. And as the demands that we see out in the workforce grow, then we want to make sure that we're keeping up with that. And again, another area in curriculum that you might want to have us reflect on. So we left it open, and if you have something that you come up with after tonight, please let us know. Bob Cotton and Brenda are both on the committee, and certainly my office, John and Kim, all participate in this process. The second aspect is around this priority around curriculum and assessment, would be around instruction. So we have 3 major goals for instruction. One, to implement common instructional materials across all grade levels. What does that mean? Well, you know, we have 5 elementary schools all moving into a middle school, and a middle school moving to a high school. We want to make sure that we have a strong alignment of materials from our elementary going to our middle. And that came out from parents and staff wanting to make sure that we had those resources available to everyone across all schools. Professional development, again, you'll hear a lot about this, but that it's research-based on best instructional practices. And the third one is we are looking to redesign the staff evaluation system in order to target expectations for excellence in instruction. And we will be kicking that off this year as part of the agreement with our Teachers Association. That was one of the amendments to the contract that we agreed to, that we will be looking at the system for staff evaluations. And the last area in curriculum instruction and assessment is assessment, and we have 3 goals there that we will implement and develop our resources to measure student mastery in content areas and to determine the next steps for those students. We're adopting universal screeners, common assessments, and also establish a calendar. We found that we were doing assessments all different times during the year. Different schools were doing it at different times, and we wanted to have a common calendar, and that is under development as we speak, because that's important for all of our schools to know when these assessments would be given. We will continue to conduct ongoing data analysis. As you know, right now we do that on trimesters. We will continue to do that, analyze data. That's important information not only for our teachers and our students and families, but we bring that information to the instructional committee, which then comes to the board. And there's a goal to look at, review, and rewrite report cards from K to 12, aligning them to the competencies that are being developed in all the content areas. Again, for you to give us any input as it relates to the goals under assessment. So the third priority that we're recommending is under the area of social emotional learning. This certainly has been on the forefront given the last several years that we've all experienced. So you've had presentations already on this, but developing a multi-tiered systems of support framework for our students. It's all defined out there, that identifying the systems, those folks that will be involved in it, continuing to have a district-wide committee to review all of the systems of support that we have for our students. The next is implementing a curriculum. We haven't done that yet. I know that we're pretty close to having the competencies all defined in social emotional learning. After those are accepted, the next steps will be to find programs to support social emotional learning across all of our grade levels. 2 more. Goal number 3 is, again, data collection. We are in the process of looking at a universal screener to gather data so that we can monitor students' behavioral health, and using a tool that teachers are being trained with. I think that the instructional committee had a presentation on that.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, again, high-quality professional development. None of these goals will go without training with the staff, and continuing to support the staff in their learning. This was an important goal for you. This is, I think, if I could, based on all the conversations that we've had over the last couple of years, communication has been really essential and certainly an important area for you. And so that has become a priority for the district, to enhance communication from the district to all stakeholders. And we just listed a variety of areas that we really wanted to continue to provide communication to all of our stakeholders. Looking at platforms that we use for communication, talking about information officer that would provide information out to the community to help us with that, ensuring that all the barriers are removed for our students, our families and students that are non-English speaking. So we're looking at all of that and the tools that we need to make sure that happens. And then same for the staff, you know, being able to have a communication system with tools that our staff can use and guidelines and in terms of different means of communicating with the families and with each other too, including regular newsletters, using the internet, taking more advantage of social media, Twitter and Facebook and so forth. So. And last is marketing. You know, I enjoyed hearing from Bill tonight as he talked about what an awesome school district and an excellence, and he had a lot of really positive words to share about how he feels about the district. And we need to do a better job at marketing our school district and all the really good things that happen. You know, over the next, one of the areas that we did was you're going to have a celebration every month. And we'll be bringing the schools in to share with you for 5 or 10 minutes to share some celebrations. And I think we need to do a better job doing that. So that has to do with goal number 3 in terms of marketing and branding our district.
Is the public information officer, and excuse me, I'm sorry if I missed a part of it, is that someone that we already have, or would that be a complement of the strategic plan?
Yeah, you know, actually the PIO is what the city uses, Public Information Officer, that's what they call it. We've referred to it as a communication person, but we don't have one yet, John.
Thank you.
All of us are kind of sharing that role. And this goal around social emotional really had to do, the goal number 4 really was to do with social media and the impact on students. You know, I don't think anybody sitting at this table tonight doesn't realize that there's a lot of advantages to social media, but yet there's a lot of downside to it, and we need to make sure that we are able to help our students in having the competencies to know how to handle the social media, and that's an important priority for us. So again, I'm leaving number 5 for your, you know, if there's some things that you'd like to add there, and for consideration for the committee, please do. The goal number 5, remember we have 5 and 6, is around facilities. This is obviously one that you've spent a lot of time on, but I think it had to do a lot with tonight's, and the comments that Kate made tonight about making sure that that we have environments that are safe and secure, and that address the variety of learners, you know, whether it's lighting, whether it's the seating, as we create new facilities and we upgrade our facilities, those things have to be kept in mind. Safety, again, that's ongoing. We've already, last week we had a training with our Concord Police Department. Matt just submitted all of our emergency operation plans to the state as required, on time, early and on time. I guess it was early then, right? Before it was even due, right? You're so good about that. Partnerships, we want to continue with strong partnerships that we have, especially with Homeland Security and New Hampshire Department of Education, along with our first responders, fire, police, and emergency personnel, and they have been so responsive to us, and we want to continue to increase that relationship. We have a 10-year capital facilities plan, which I think needs to go periodically to the facilities committee. We will continue to do that. Determine infrastructure enhancements. Again, I think some of those things talked a little bit about what Kate just talked about, but also making sure that we have the infrastructure to ensure safety for all of our students. I think the other piece was the athletics. We have that in there too, in creating some kind of a athletic council to prioritize improvements and needs in our programs that use athletic fields and grounds. Athletic fields and grounds improvements, it keeps coming up and it needs to be addressed. We haven't put a timeline on that yet, but certainly something that you as a board are going to have to seriously think about over the next 3 to 5 years. And of course, sustainability, which is now a regular item on your agenda, and trying to reach that net zero for us in the community, and certainly we'll be working with the city on that, as they have set the parameters for net zero for all of their buildings. We want to be partners in that work. And even in this one, we gave you a chance for an open. I don't know if there's anything else. I think we captured most of it. And the last priority is around safety for our schools, and the kinds of activities that we do to continually develop safe school environments for our students and staff, faculty. It's really important. If the school environment isn't safe and secure, it really does, it impacts learning, so that's got to be a priority. Create safe structures that optimize response to safety for all, and we listed a number of areas around continuing to develop policy, to consider the addition of an SRO at Runlet Middle School, to all the responses and the protocols. As you know, we're doing the training around CRACE training, so we'll be training our teachers. We have a new BIT team, behavior intervention team, so we can monitor students who are really struggling and be able to provide them the resources that they need. And as you know, the impact of mental health issues has really increased over the last several years, so this has become a high priority for us. And obviously, continuing to look at cyber security, that's been a big issue. A number of schools have had cyber attacks, losing data, as well as having financial commitments. Anyway, that wraps up our 6 goals, and we continue to work on it. I think our next step in the process will be to finalize these based on your input, and then the committee will meet and then determine a year-to-year kind of. We're not gonna spread the whole 5 years out, but we will come back to you with the goals in each of the 6 areas and identify which ones we'll be working on this year. So. We would like very much to put our plan into a nice presentation to have. So we're looking at having it published with pictures and kind of dress it up. Again, a good way to brand it.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent. Questions?
Are we going to vote on this at some point, hold a public hearing on this at some point?
I hadn't thought about a public hearing, given that we did a pretty widespread job at having focus groups and gathering data, but we certainly can do that if that's something that you think. But yes, the board should vote on these if it becomes your strategic plan. Now, I presented the goals quite a while back, and then we've worked on it and gathered all the data this summer at retreat with the administrators. We worked on it again, so I think the board. I would recommend that the board vote on them. I think that's important before we put these to press.
Okay. Then I agree, and I also think that there should be a public hearing for the public to be able to weigh in on this as well, since it is 5 years in duration and impacts the city as well, although that will be ultimately the decision of the entire board, whether we have a public hearing. In the meantime, Superintendent, you are looking for us to give you comments and input and additions to this in the next month. in the
Right.
next 2 months? What is your
Right, we work
timeline?
on it every Friday afternoon. We work on it at 1 o'clock.
So you'd like 'em by next Friday?
Yeah, I mean, we're continuing to roll it out, looking at who's responsible who is responsible, what are our outcomes, what do we expect, and we're rolling that out for year to year, so that, because it's too much to expect to have a matrix with 5 years of this. So
Mhm.
we'll just do 1 year at a time.
Okay.
But I would appreciate that. And like I said, Bob Cotton is on it, as well as Brenda's on the committee.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts?
No, just that we are continually adjusting and readjusting the goals and recommendations and procedures for it, and that, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the big ideas that we're trying to keep in mind is that each of these goals be what's the word I'm looking for? That we can assess them. Measured, yes, that they're measurable, so that it will be easy for us to look at the data and say, yes, we met this goal, or no, we didn't, and here's where we didn't meet it, so that we can make those changes.
I think the tool is really important, not only for the work that you do around policy, but it also prioritizes things for your budget. When you do budget, what's the priorities for this year? And you need to know what is important to your constituents as to it relates to the improvements in the district. So, I mean, this tool should be used not just for, here's the goals and it sits on the shelf, but as a working document that you use in your deliberations. And it's used by administrators because it sets the goals for the schools and for the district.
Very good. Yeah, I think annual implementation plans for this are critical. Other comments? All right, we'll be revisiting this again soon.
If you want to join us Friday afternoons, 1 o'clock, we're right here.
Thank you very much.
So the second piece for me tonight is just to review my goals. And I base my goals on the annual review that you do as a board, which is part of your policy, that you will review my work. And then from that, again, this is not carved in stone here. This is, I'm looking for any input, but one I think was important is that we develop a process for continuing program review. What does that mean? That means, how do you measure the impact of programs? How do we measure student academic growth? What are we using for assessment tools? The state assessment, SATs, the iReady assessments, formative assessments, are those assessments done by teachers? And then gathering information and analyzing the social emotional learning programs. Things like attendance, behaviors, referrals, all of that. So that's a goal that I have put on myself based on your suggestions to me around information that you need and that I need to provide for you. The second goal was, again, to implement additional progress monitoring tools for 3 through 10, using monitoring student growth. You can't wait, give a test in May or June at the end of the year and not apply the kinds of remediation that a youngster might need. So we are implementing assessments that will support progress monitoring. We'll also be implementing the SABRES tool, which will monitor students' emotional and social growth. Really important. And very important around their well-being, so that will also be implemented. I think another area that was important is to increase the district's visibility in the community and at each school site. So we're hopefully, with COVID quieting down a little bit,
we're able to get out and be out more and have opportunities to meet with stakeholders, participate and speak at PTA meetings, Chamber of Commerce, any ad hoc committees, and also participate at state and regional activities. And this isn't just for me, this is for the whole team here at central office and making sure that we're out and visible. And we'll continue to provide you with that information. The fourth goal was to provide a greater detail on the status of the district financial standing. And that's been something that you've wanted to have more information on, and so Jack and I have come up with some ways in which we can keep you better informed around the standing of the financial aspects of the district. And tonight you'll see in your packet there's a report out on all of the financial standing of our operational budget. In addition, one of the pieces that we want to be able to do, and one of the goals for me this year, is to make sure that we give you an opportunity to give feedback on grants and various entitlements that we get. You know, they come in fast. We just got a new grant. It just came in, so we want to make sure that it gets onto some agenda so that you have some chance to have some input on that particular grant. Now, it has to follow the guidelines of the grant, but you should have some input, and that's something that we want to work on this year. I think an important role for me this year will be making sure that we provide the leadership in the selection. I provide leadership in the selection and employment of key positions in the district this year, such as the diversity, equity, inclusion, justice director, high school principal, elementary school principal, and working with our team to recruit staff that represent the demographics of our student body. And the last piece for my goals this year was around the implementation of a strategic plan. So I hope that I captured your suggestions and recommendations.
Thank you. And I would ask anyone on the board who wanted to make comments or additions or to have any input with regards to these goals to please reach out to myself, Vice President Higgins, or Ms. Cannon in the coming weeks for us to review and incorporate these in and discuss them with the superintendent.
I have a quick question.
Certainly.
I know that we did a collective written review. Is that in our email anywhere or on the drive to reference?
That, is it on the drive? We do, that is not a public item.
Yeah, it's
but,
not a public document.
I just have never seen
but it is accessible, and yes, we can give you the final version of what we discussed in that particular meeting. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Superintendent. That brings us to Mr. Dunn, I believe, and our district financial report. Let us know when you're ready, Mr. Dunn.
I'm just putting it on the screen, sorry.
Okay.
I guess you have it all in front of you. It's tough for me from here, but. So, it was asked. Is that me? Oops.
You're not doing anymore, Jack.
Just now anonymous now,
What's that?
Mr. Dunn.
Yeah, you can't get nice things. Oh, yeah. So this report was a quick, I gave at the Finance Committee just a quick summary of what we kind of do to manage the district's budget. So this is the general fund budget. And as you can see, that this is as of 9/28 at 12:48 p.m. When I came here, I built a tool that links to our financial system that updates in real time. So I hit a button, I refresh, and I have the latest and greatest of where the district sits. And the way that it manages it, and next month we'll have it a little clearer. I noticed they made a copy to put it in. I have a PDF that we'll have it, and it'll be more colored than the scan that's done here. But in that first column is the original budget, which is the budget you passed in March. The next column over is the year-to-date actual. That's money that has gone out and checks that have been cut. And the third column over are encumbrances, so that is what we've committed to. You'll notice this first section is salaries. So one of the things that I have asked our payroll department is to encumber our committed dollars wherever we possibly can. So I know that this is what I anticipate to be spent from the salary accounts this year. Now, what you're seeing also is a summary of the accounts. See that number to the left? That's a summary. There are 16,000 accounts that we manage in the district between general fund, food service fund, and grants, okay? So you're not, if I explode this, this thing will be hundreds of thousands of pages. But this is just summed up to give you an idea of where things are running, okay? If I move over to the fourth column, they are requisitions. So now that's how much is sitting in a request to become a purchase order. Because in order for us to purchase, it becomes a purchase order. A rec is a request to spend money, a PO is the authorization to spend it. And then you have the fifth column, which is what I project will be spent from those accounts. So when you take the year-to-date, the encumbrance, and the rec, you add them all together, that creates the projected column. Yeah.
And Jack, is it typical for the rec to be zero?
Well, especially in the salary line, because we don't let people spend out of those lines manually. So if you go down further, you might see some recs in other lines, but typically the salary and benefits lines, there isn't much in the way of recs, okay? Or if they're recs, they move along pretty quick, because like benefits have course reimbursements in them, so we move those things along.
Thank you.
And then you move to the sixth column is the year-to-date balance. So that's what we project when you take what the budget is minus the projected. That gives you what the year-to-date balance is in that account. And then how much, what percentage of the budget has been used and what percentage of the budget is remaining. Okay? And we break this up into the categories that are in the accounting manual that's produced, the 1999 accounting manual produced for the Department of Ed. Mm-hmm. So you have salaries, benefits, professional services, purchased property, that was the 6,400, purchased services, your supplies, equipment, dues and fees, and principals and transfers. That's all on the expense side. And then the next is the revenue piece, which doesn't give us, it gives guidance, but this is grouped into three major areas: the local, the state, and federal resources, and then other, which are your transfers that you bring in money from your expendable trusts that you control. So this changes every hour, half hour, 10 minutes, will depend on how much activity happens. But this is what I use to kind of manage the district. I mean, in our fiscal year is not a calendar year. It is July 1 to June 30th. So this is all the activity from July 1 to, on this sheet, 9/28. Any questions about specific accounts or specific items? And we'll bring you this, I don't care, every month, quarterly, however you want to do it. We'll talk about this again on the 17th of October, which is the Finance Committee meeting. And there'll be a number of things we need to address as it relates to the current year budget, which is FY23, and some of the stuff we're starting to get as it relates to FY24, including healthcare.
Actually, I do have just a clarification question under the revenue, the vocational tuition aid, that's just for the CRTC, correct? Yeah. Okay. And the vocational tuition differential, what is that?
That's what we bill sending districts for what the state doesn't pay for.
Got it. Thank you.
Good question.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dunn. I would ask that, in our upcoming ones, you make the headings just a little clearer. a little easier to read.
I'm not a big fan of scan, but when they put the book in, that's what it was, and they didn't have the PDF, so I'll provide the
Well-
PDF, and it'll show you the colors more than the blue hue.
This is the first month that we have included it in here, so I appreciate the fact that you did that, and we'll have some learning. This is in, for the sake of the public who want to see this, this is in, on our website, under the, in the school board area, under our packets for monthly board meetings, and so you should be able to see this. Anyone who wishes to should be able to go to our website and be able to take a look at this if you so desire. And if you have questions, reach out to your board member. Thank you. Any other questions? Very good. All right. Anything else, Mr. Dunn, for this evening?
I'm good at the moment.
Okay. With that, we reach our next item, which is public comment. We allot 15 minutes for this particular public comment session, and then another 15 minutes at least for the remaining public comment session. We ask that this public comment session address agenda items. So if anyone from the public would like to come up and speak, we'd also ask that you abide by policy number 136, which asks you to limit your comments to 5 minutes, and asks you to please sign in so we have your name correct and state where you are from. So do we have any public comment for this evening? If so, please step down to the microphone. All right, not seeing any at this time. As I said before, we will have a public comment session at the end of the meeting that will be at least 30 minutes in length. If anyone wishes, any group of people or number of people wish to come down and make use of that full time frame. With that, I would entertain a motion to go into non-public session. Yes, Ms.
Pursuant to RSA 91A:5, Roman numeral 2, Section J, consideration of confidential, commercial, or financial information that is exempt from public disclosure under RSA 91A:5.
Okay, so the motion has been made as by Mr. Weinberg to go into a non-public session.
Sorry, 91A5.
:5J. J is in parentheses.
So let me know when you're ready, Ms. Cannon.
Yeah. 91A5?
I'm not 3.
I'm not following.
it's 3.
Jonathan, 91A5, I don't.
Oh, 3. It might be A:3.
Three.
Under, but one of the
Okay,
exemptions is under A.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I just, 91. Do you want to come look over my shoulder so we get the right? So we have 91A. 3. Okay, got it.
All right,
91A3.
you all set?
J. Yep, got it. I
Okay,
just-
so the motion has been made by Mr. Weinberg. Is there a second to that motion?
Seconded.
Seconded by Ms. West. Any discussion? All right, this, I believe, is a roll call vote. So, Ms. Cannon, whenever you're ready.
Ms. Hastings?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Here.
No, is it okay to go into non-public?
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Okay. Ms. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Weinberg?
Yes.
Ms. West?
Yes.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So we have 6 aye and 1 abstention.
All right, for those that are watching, I don't anticipate this to take longer than 20 minutes. I don't know, but we will come back to a public session and be back on live television when we come out of non-public session. And with that, I'm going to declare us in non-public session as of right now. We are back live and have completed the non-public session. Pardon me. I would entertain a motion to come out of non-public.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Weinberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Walsh. Roll call vote whenever you're ready, Ms. Cannon.
Ms. Hastings?
Yes.
Mr. Parker? Ms. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Weinberg?
Aye.
Ms. West?
Aye.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
And I vote aye.
All right, we are out of non-public. We are now back in public session. I would entertain a motion to seal the minutes pursuant to the reason we went into public session.
91A3J.
Very good, thank you. Do I have a motion to seal the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Weinberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Walsh. This one, I believe, does not have to be a roll call, so in that case, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we have sealed the minutes with regards to that. Without any objection, we will move on to item number 7.5, roughly, and that which is school board recommendations on proposed ballot questions. Once again, these are non-binding, but a recommendation just that we put forward. I will address these, if ever no one objects, on an individual basis, each ballot question coming up, if that's okay with everyone. Okay.
Mr. Rich, are we
Yes.
going to include the discussion of the campaign finance disclosure forms at this time, or is that going to be for a future date?
I would make that for a future date,
Okay.
since it's somewhat nuanced as to whether or not we can make a policy that binds anyone who is not on the board already. But go ahead, Ms.
It's actually not nuanced. We cannot bind anybody who is not already on the board
So,
through a resolution.
so while our policy could make anyone on the board running for re-election have to provide their financial disclosure, we cannot bind someone who is not on the board. So,
Interesting.
yeah, so I think we need to look into this as to how the board would recommend. And I believe that I think my interpretation, it will fall on us to influence our representatives in the state legislature to make that change, but we'll see. Go ahead, Ms. Walsh.
Just for informational purposes, if we hope to influence the legislature to take this up in the coming legislative session, the filing period for bills ends November 22nd.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
So I refer that to the Communication and Policy Committee, knowing that you have a November 22nd deadline for anything that will not affect this election, but would affect the coming elections, I believe is correct.
Well, and certainly, I'm sorry, I'm going to interject, but
Go
there's
right ahead.
nothing that prevents anyone who's currently running from filling out those forms.
No, not at all. They may voluntarily be filled out at any time. So, and so with that, I will just summarize the proposed ballot questions. Question 1 is an amendment to eliminate old references. You have it in front of you on page 50 of your board book. Basically deleting older references that were specific to the initial charter and language pertaining to the 2012 election. I would make a motion to recommend this.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Walsh. Is there any discussion on this particular one? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the board
Aye.
recommends, sorry.
No,
Recommends
sorry,
this.
I'm opposed.
Oh,
I
you,
don't
nay.
think we
So-
have any authority
Mhm.
to recommend, approve, or reject. These are required by law to go to the voters.
Okay, so you're bringing up a much bigger question. The fact that whether we should be voting on these and making these recommendations at all, and I respect that.
So I will
So-
abstain. I don't believe it's appropriate
Well, in that
for
case,
us.
I would open that up for discussion among all of the board. Do we want to take these up? Go ahead, Ms. Hastings.
Point of clarification, do you think that that is what the Charter Commission was asking us to do? Or did they want us individually to talk to people if it came up? I didn't get I guess I wasn't,
I guess I wasn't clear on that
Clear.
either, however,
Yeah.
you know,
I thought they wanted us to just, in talking to people, encourage them
okay.
if we agreed to vote for those.
I don't know if I got that
I
interpretation.
thought they were looking for the board to
I think they were
endorse.
looking for a,
You do too?
yeah, for a, but that still doesn't mean that Ms. Cannon does not have a
Does
valid
anyone
point.
know the history of what the board did during the last Charter Commission?
Jack, were you on?
Mr. Dunn, you may be the only one who.
No, I was part of the school board then. I was not on the charter commission.
Right,
No, but-
It's the original one.
But I try to think about towns that vote, have committees, and vote on budget amendments, and they'll say on the ballots that it's being endorsed by the school board, or the school board voted, 5-4 to recommend.
Okay, so we could do that.
I don't
But I
know.
think I'll pose that question that
Yeah.
actually was posed already by Ms. Cannon is, does this board wish to make a recommendation or support any of these or all of these? Or do we want to take that position, or do we want to just leave it to the voters? And of course, Ms. Hastings, to your point, every one of us can
Right.
certainly endorse, or, we have a freedom of speech to be able to say what we think on those. So what is anyone's thoughts? Mr. Parker?
Well, if we do or we don't endorse, what difference is it gonna make? It's still all gonna be going on the ballot, correct?
That is correct. Whatever we do
And what we
makes
do
little
is not gonna be
investment.
printed on the ballot, I don't.
No, will not. It would only be in the minutes of this meeting.
So, let's assume we don't approve one, does that mean it won't go on the ballot?
No, sir,
So
it will
what's
be on the ballot.
purpose of approving or disapproving of them?
Just purely for a supportive or, just to re-endorse the work of the commission for putting it on there. But the commission is fully charged in its own to do it without, regardless of
No, I
us.
do understand they're looking for our support, but I'm sort of leaning towards what Gina is saying, it's really not for us to decide, it's for the voters to decide.
Other comments?
They did a job of explaining it to the board. I mean, it's.
No, I agree. I understand your position, and that's why I posed the question. Do we, as a board, want to take this position, or do we just want to leave it to the voters, and all of the individual board members may express their opinions however they wish, individually?
I do agree with this viewpoint. I also think there is something to say with being advocates for public education and endorsing these amendments that were fastidiously looked at. So I think there is something to say for being members of a public body for public education and looking at amendments relative to it. I think there could be a place, but honestly, I could go either way.
Okay, Ms. Cannon?
Well, and I don't want to say that my objection to doing it has anything to do with the actual tenor or the actual proposed questions. I'm just saying, similar to when Mr. Ardinger said, the commission doesn't exist anymore, they don't have any authority. I believe that our board has no authority to approve or reject these publicly. I just don't think that's within our purview.
Ms. West?
I personally don't mind discussing them publicly.
Okay. So.
Should we
Ms.
vote
Ms.
on
I was going to say,
voting?
we will, but I think the
I've been
superintendent
waiting,
has
but,
something she would like to say.
Your clerk told you last time that your responsibility in this process was that you would charge that these items be placed on the ballot, and that was your responsibility. We talked about whether you were going, back then, we talked about whether you were going to recommend or not recommend, and he was very explicit in that your responsibility was to move that these be placed on the ballot, and you charge this administration to do that work for you.
Mhm.
And that's the extent of it. So you
Don't have to,
you
or.
don't have to do that. I
nor-
just want to be clear about what Patrick Taylor told you last time.
Correct. And I think the Charter Commission wanted us to endorse their work, and while I may, I personally, at this point, I appreciate their work, and I certainly admire the diligence they put into this, but they've done their work, and I'm fine with just letting this go to the voters myself.
I'm good with that.
That's what everyone is. Well, let's put that to a vote straight up for just,
Okay,
so that
hold
we
on.
know where we are.
Before we do that, Jim, we have a motion
Yeah,
to
I-
recommend on the floor
Yep,
that's been
I'd like to
made
withdraw my
and-
motion.
Okay, and Pam, how do you feel? Because you
I'm
seconded
happy to
it.
withdraw.
Okay, so we'll withdraw that motion.
We did already.
I think we did, but we could reconsider it. But if we want to go through the formality of that. However, I think from just a, general feeling of the board, does anybody wish to push this any further or to just move on? I think we were all in agreement that we are fine not endorsing, but just thanking them for their work.
Yep, okay.
And I will make the motion to thank the Charter Commission for their work, to express our appreciation for them presenting it to us, and to declare that we have fulfilled our requirements of posting it as well as working with the city to get it onto the ballot.
I don't think you need a motion. I think you just thank them.
I can just say that because I'm the
Yes.
president?
Yes.
Cool. I like that. All right.
Point of information.
Yes.
It appears that in 2011, there was no motion by the board to endorse the charter amendments.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dunn, for your
Mr. Dunn
research.
just did some research.
Who was here.
Thank you for
in
your
those days,
nimble
so-
fingers on searching,
All right.
Mr. Dunn.
What are we looking at, 11 years later?
Yeah.
Presentation by Elizabeth Hoadley, of the Concord District Charter Commission, and that was in the September 2011 meeting.
Thank
They just
Thank you,
for their
Ms.
work.
Hoadley, for your service then as well as now.
So the
All right.
motion to thank the commission, did you continue?
No, we just
No.
said he thanked the commission.
I
for
just
their-
thanked them as the president of the board. I don't think anyone's objecting with me on that particular item.
No, but
With-
Mr. President?
Yes.
I have a related issue, or I guess it would be a motion.
Sure.
Given amendment, the proposed amendment 2 to the charter,
Yes.
I would like to move that the Communications and Policy Committee consider revisions to policy number 115, which is board member or district officer resignation. And I would like to encourage the policy committee to add a requirements for public notice and public comment on proposed new members of the school board.
Okay.
What was the policy again?
115.
Thank you.
And this is a motion to refer and that particular policy back to the committee
Yes,
for review and reconsideration.
yes.
Does this need a second?
Yeah, we'll
Second.
have a second. Seconded.
I don't know what policy you're talking about.
I'll speak to my motion. It's the policy for how a new board member is appointed when a board member resigns. And it doesn't include any public comment period or public notice. The last time this occurred, it was announced at the meeting and it was approved before the public comment period. And I especially think if the Charter Commission is recommending extending even further the time that appointed members serve, there needs to be a greater opportunity for public involvement, and I would hope the Communications and Policy Committee would consider that.
I understand, but we don't have the policy in front of us right now.
No.
No, she's just referring.
I'm just
to
asking that
That we
making
take
a
it off as
motion
a
that it be
committee.
referred to the
Oh, okay.
committee to look
Yeah,
at.
I'm on that committee, I understand, okay.
So,
Just want to be clear what we're
Yep.
doing.
Ms. Cannon, you have the motion as well as who seconded?
Yes.
All right. All those in favor of the well, is there any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So that will be referred to the Communications and Policy Committee.
Yep.
All right. Anything else before we move on to personnel? All right. Superintendent, who will be handling, well, let's see, leave of absence requests? None?
None? All right.
Go on.
And so Michelle will do the folks that we're bringing forward.
We have board teacher confirmations. We have Melissa Garish will be an occupational therapist for the district. Abigail Laporte, occupational therapist for the district. Jason McCarter will be at the CRTC in the culinary and pastry arts. And Kathleen Prue will be a teacher of autism special education at Beaver Meadow.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the slate of teacher nominations.
All right. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Hastings for the approval of the CEA nominations. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The nominations are accepted. Ms. Karen?
We have no coaches at this time.
No questions at this time? Thank you very much. So with that, we will move on to Communications and Policy. Ms. Cannon?
Okay. Okay, so we have a second reading of the drug-free workplace and drug-free schools. If you'll recall, we went over this last month. It has to do with an updated policy as required by federal law. So we updated it. We did add a few things to it. If you'll recall that we wanted to have it posted next to the EAP poster so that teachers did not feel that this was stick only, that there was, I don't want to say carrot, but there were options, that this is not a punitive policy. So it is before us for a second reading. So I would move that we approve the revised policy 413, drug-free workplace and drug-free schools.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Ms. Walsh. Is there any further discussion with regards to this policy? In that case, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Ms.
Okay.
Cannon?
Additionally, policy 630, instructional resources and instructional resource plan. This had to do with coming up with a procedure by which resources are made or chosen for curriculum. I did not hear anything from anybody about any changes they wanted to make, so I would make a motion that we accept policy 630 as written and in the board book.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion has been made, I believe, by Ms.
Oh,
Cannon
yeah,
and
she did,
seconded
yep.
by Ms. Hastings.
Yep, sorry. I'm tired.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Ms.
Okay.
Gannon?
Again, sort of the same thing for 634, which has to do with the health education and exemption. This is where parents have the ability to opt their child out of particular sections of the curriculum that they do not feel is appropriate for their child. Superintendent, is there supposed to be a form that attaches to this at some point? And
There is, it's below.
is it? Did I just?
Well, it's a few pages.
It's a few pages.
Yeah,
Okay.
87.
Towards the end of.
Page
Okay,
87.
sorry.
Sorry. we probably-
I'm just, okay, there it is. Yep, thank you. So I'm just trying to catch up the appendices with all of the.
I know.
So again, I didn't hear anything from anybody. I don't know if anybody has any objections. So if there's no further discussion, then I would move that we accept District Policy 634, Health Education and Exemption from Instruction.
Jen?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Parker. Any discussion?
Form that goes with it.
Yeah.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Ms. Cannon?
And last, but certainly not least. Oh, not last. Okay, sorry. Nope, 650. So again, parental objections to specific course material. This is the same kind of policies we just did for health education, but for the greater curriculum. So if somebody's parent objects to a particular piece of literature or a particular chapter or something in the curriculum, they have a methodology for opting out for their child.
Ms. Cannon, but an important thing to note on this is if a parent objects to specific course material, that does not take it away from the entire class, only from
Correct,
the
only for that child.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Ms. Walsh?
Ms. Walsh.
I'm just curious, on both of these, 634 and 650, how often we actually see objections? If you had anyone had any idea?
I haven't had any,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
to my knowledge.
we looked into that, Pam, when we were discussing it. Yeah, there's very little request for that.
Have not been, it's, in the 2 years I've been here, it has not been brought to my attention.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to know.
But if they do,
Right, if they do, we have a policy.
The one that you might see a little bit more of is the health one, because it has to do,
Right.
you know, the sexual information that they have, and some people get, you know, it's too young for my child, that kind of thing.
All right. Ms. Cannon, did you make the
I did.
motion?
I moved that we accept policy number 650, parental objections to specific course materials.
Very good. Do I have a second?
second.
Seconded by Mr. Parker. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Ms. West.
So I'm just trying to understand, because again, when we do these policies, they're typically driven by laws, right?
Mhm.
So my question here is essentially how, and I'm sure it's here and I'm just missing it. What's the balance here between, you know, the education that we're obligated to provide to a child, and a parent saying, I don't want you to teach my child this material? At some point, they could say, I don't want you to teach my child any math. And that wouldn't be us providing them an education. So I'm just trying to figure out where the checks and balances are there. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure they're really, I mean, I may be speaking out of turn, but I think if someone wants to object to an entire course, I mean, I suppose you could object to that, but then I'm not sure your child would have the credits for graduation.
I'm just saying,
And
is
that-
there anything in here
but that
where the
would be-
district says?
I believe
Our
at the, I
recommendation,
believe
actually.
the
I think the
paragraph that
superintendent has
says,
something.
He's right.
in the event a parent or guardian
There you go.
finds specific course material objectionable, the parent or guardian may notify the building principal of the specific material which they object and request that a student receive alternative instruction sufficient to enable the student to meet the state requirements for education in that particular subject area. So I think that covers it.
Well, no, but I mean, I think no, actually it doesn't, because I think what Ms. West was saying is if they say, don't teach my child algebra, I object to algebra.
Then they would have to
They wouldn't meet state
receive
requirements,
sufficient
though, right?
to meet state requirements.
Right, but you can't. because algebra is a required subject.
So
So then,
they
but what
would
would
not
we
be
would just
allowed to
say,
do
sorry,
that.
we are
Right.
denying your request. Is
I-
this in the policy how we deny the requirement?
Well,
No, I
or
think it
they
would
may
withdraw
not,
their child from school. I don't know.
right, they may not meet the educational requirements in that area, and
But that's on us to provide, not on the parent, right?
But if the parent refuses to allow us to provide
Yeah,
that education, I don't
we
know.
can. I apologize.
Yeah,
I'll-
that's, I just,
Parents have rights and.
They do,
and
and-
things, but they also have the consequences of those rights. Usually if an administration, if they want to appeal, they come before the board anyway. And that's the appeal process, and then if they're not satisfied with us, they could go to some other legal level, right?
So essentially, what I understand though is that just because a parent has requested doesn't mean it will be approved. And then where is the trigger for approval or disapproval?
Well, from what we worked on this quite a bit, and I think they can disapprove of certain content.
I'm just trying to
but-
figure out if it's the superintendent that makes that final decision of whether or not.
Well,
so there's a process by which the building principal and the guardian try to come to a resolution on the alternative requirements, and if that doesn't work, then the district staff will make reasonable efforts.
That's what I'm saying. And then if that doesn't work, then what? Because the child, right, we have truancy officers because parents have rights, but children they have rights to education. So I'm just trying to figure out what happens next when we say, if we take algebra out of this child's curriculum, they won't meet state requirements. Who says we can't approve your request?
that would go, I believe that comes under the fact that any alternative instruction must meet state requirements and would go to the Department of Education at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Is that enough? Is that okay?
Yeah, I apologize.
think
I
that's
just-
pretty much- No, it's great. Good to ask the question.
Yeah,
I
there's checks and
believe that's
balances
it.
on this stuff for sure.
So,
Good question.
further discussion? All right. We have a motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that motion passes. I believe you have one other.
Yep, okay, so now this is the one, I don't know whether people got my email, it was my bad for sending it so late, but the education of homeless children and unaccompanied youth. Unaccompanied youth, by the way, is defined as young people who find themselves not in the care of their parent or guardian. This is a policy that we need to have pursuant to federal law. Once you get to the federal level, it's called Mckinney Vento. And it's designed to try and keep students who find themselves homeless on an even footing with both their peers and where they were prior to experiencing homelessness, to the extent that that's at all possible and is still in their best interest. So as I mentioned in the email today, we need to have this in place. So the board went through this pretty carefully. There's procedures involved for determining, what district the child stays in, who's responsible for providing transportation, all of those costs and stuff, and what the process is if the unaccompanied youth or the parent/guardian disagrees with the school district as to who's the responsible school district. But there are homeless liaisons in the district. They have certain obligations to help the students and/or the families of the homeless student. But this came before the committee. We decided to recommend it to the board tonight for the only reading and for passage this evening because it's so important that we get this in place as quickly as possible.
So, in addition to recommending this policy, we are asking to suspend the
I think we have to
first
do
and
two
second
votes.
readings.
I think the
Yes.
first one is that we suspend the first reading, move directly to the second, and then the second
Correct.
one would be the,
So we need to have
So-
two votes.
I'll make a motion to suspend the first reading.
Second.
Okay.
Do I need does it need to be more specific?
Nope, that's fine. Let me know when you catch up.
Yep. I'm caught.
Any further discussion?
Just a point of information, there are how many students that fit under this criteria in the
Right now, 94.
Yeah, so it's a substantial amount of students. We went over this policy very thoroughly in the committee, and yeah, it's important we get it out there.
And
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Mr. Parker, and I, at this point, will say that I endorse suspending this because of the urgency of this particular topic and this particular policy. Any further discussion?
I just want to add that I'm trying to help some friends of ours who find themselves unhoused temporarily, and I want the board to just be aware that the occupancy rate for rental properties in Concord is less than 0.1%. Less than 0.1. So.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of suspending the first reading pursuant to the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good, that motion passes. So I will make the motion to approve policy 529, education of homeless children and unaccompanied youth. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes.
Thank you. And then last but not least, we went through it in the consent agenda. Never mind.
So, that is last.
Yeah.
Certainly not least.
No, I was going to highlight the meeting, but we did that in the consent agenda.
All right, very good. Anything else with regards to communications and policy? Ms. Karen?
Only thing I would say is we are going to try and take up the bullying policy in October. We are also going to look at the campaign contributions policy. So if anyone would like to have input in that, please do not hesitate to reach out to me.
And of course, they're
They
welcome
may
to
anyway.
attend, they're welcome to attend
Yeah, absolutely.
the committee meeting. Okay. All right, with that, we'll move on to item 10, report from the instructional committee. Ms. Hastings?
Yes, you'll find the minutes from our meeting on September 14th on page 93 in your board book. We had a back-to-school review, which went of the event at Keach Park, which was great. We reviewed the PD and the opening days. And we had a presentation by Director Janine Richards on the social emotional learning competencies that the district has been working on since 2019, which was going to come to you for recommendation, but we're still working out some of the finer details on that, and I'm not ready tonight to bring this to you, but hope to be able to bring it to you next month
All right.
for a recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Hastings. Questions? Go ahead, Ms. Kennan.
Brenda, what happens if someone can't meet or doesn't meet these competencies?
That is one of the questions that we're still
struggling with.
Right.
Okay.
There are 150 or so competencies, and this is very comprehensive, so we need to really take a look at that.
Very good.
Right, but if somebody doesn't meet competencies, say, in, let's go back to algebra.
Right.
Since we're picking on algebra tonight, then someone doesn't get the credit for algebra. Are these required for graduation?
And
Are
I don't have the answers for that right now, which
Okay.
is one of the things that
Okay.
why I can't recommend that we do it tonight.
Okay.
So we look forward to reviewing this at a future
Yes.
board meeting. All right, very good.
Thank you.
Anything else with regards to instructional committee?
No, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Hastings. At this point, we'll go to subcommittees. Anti-racism equity subcommittee. Who will be making that report this evening?
There aren't really any reports to make. We did have some finalist interviews for the DEIJ director position last week, and all New Hampshire listens send out an email to coordinate our first meeting of the year for our Equity Advisory Council. So that should be upcoming the next month. So we'll have more updates around there. I'm not sure if the superintendent has anything to add there.
Nope.
Mr. Weinberg, thank you for your update.
And then I guess I'm covering the next area as well.
The next area is the Sustainability Committee. Mr. Weinberg?
Yes, we met last week. We had a great kind of honest conversation about whether Concord will meet the 2030 goal of 100% renewable energy. And the city of Concord paid for a sustainability fellow who did a very deep analysis on carbon emissions in the Concord area, as well as what would need to be done. And we would need to drastically increase, as a city, what we are doing to combat climate change and institute more renewable energy options in order to meet the goal for 2030. With that being said, the city did talk about, I learned that they just transitioned to LED lights. So if you've been seeing in the street lights around Concord, kind of similar to what the district did a couple years ago, if I stand corrected. And they were talking how happy they were about that rebate. But also, we were looking at different ways we can collaborate as like a city and school district and finding ways to really meet that goal together. And another aspect that we're waiting for is the United Nations Climate Change meeting, which occurs at the end of November in Egypt, and kind of some of the conversations and outcomes from there could help dictate what we want to do on a local level, as well as suggestions for where we can go.
Very good. Questions for Mr. Weinberg? Thank you, Mr. Weinberg. Excellent report. With that, we will move on to other business. Item number A, enrollment.
I think your report is in in your report 129. You have an enrollment report for each school, along with the grade levels. Also some information, and by the way, I was not correct, Dave, that there's 90 homeless students. So but we provide that. We'll provide that to you monthly, so you have it. And enrollment continues to remain pretty close to what it's been. We haven't seen major changes.
Superintendent, is it accurate that we lost 150 students at the high school?
No, we didn't. It was what happened. Yeah, I know. We had that same question. What happens is kids were still in the system that had left.
Okay, thank you. I'm just like, how could we have lost 150 people in a month?
Kids that had left.
Thank you.
They hadn't pulled them out yet.
Superintendent, the only question I have is with regards to the 5th grade at the Beaver Meadows School.
Right. It's still within your policy, but,
Can we do something about that, though?
Are you-
It's 2 years in a row now that that grade level has had, or that school has had.
Right. And you can see that leaves them next year. It's gone. So right now, you'd have to hire another teacher, and I prefer not to do that with the kids already in school. And assigned, it does meet your guidelines.
It does.
It's right in the middle. It's mid-range for 5th grade. I know that's a little high as compared to the other schools, and I get that.
Is this for Beaver Meadow?
This is at Beaver Meadow.
Have
It's been the second year in a row. They now moved on, last year, obviously moved on to Runlet.
Have we reached out to the principal or administration at school? And I know we are limited on assistance, educational. Do they have an opportunity to put some additional help in there if needed?
Yes, they can, if we can find them.
It's the hiring.
It's been really difficult to find
That answers my
educational
question.
assistance.
But I would encourage you to keep an eye on that.
Right.
As we move forward. It is the one thing that stands out here.
Right.
All right. Other
And
questions?
it's really the only area that's been problematic.
But I will point out, I know that it is indeed within our class guidelines for 5th grade. So, all right. Anything else with regards to that?
No, not in regards to that.
Okay, then we move on to other business item B. The New Hampshire School Board Association Conference was held quite recently, just a few days ago. We had two representatives there, Ms. West and Mr. Weinberg. I know we didn't have this originally on there, but can you speak at all to what the proceedings?
Definitely. So we first kind of looked at the continuing resolutions from the previous year. So there was some debate about whether some IDEA allocation calculation kind of debates for Nottingham and Stratford should still be included in here, because there have been apparently some litigation that has been solved. So there was some debate around there. Ultimately, it remained as a continuing resolution to continue to look into the IDEA funding for those specific districts. But every resolution that our board supported or did not support, or supported a specific school district, actually passed. So, for example, the Raymond School Board, the initial one, the NHSBA Board Directors recommendation with alternate language, that one passed. For the Conval School Board, everyone voted, the majority voted not support. For the Wilton Lindenborough Co-op, ultimately it was not support after some discussion on the floor about some people trying to make last-minute amendments surrounding what the resolution should look like, but nonetheless it still failed. For number 4, the dairy co-op resolution about food insecurity passed. I wish I wrote down the vote number. I think it was like 28 to 21. It was rather close. The Chester Academy recommendation, the school board association's recommendation with alternate language, as we supported, passed. For the Chester Academies, relevant to the retirement system, as the board of directors supported and did not support it, it ultimately failed as well. The Dresden School Board resolution calling for compliance with federal laws passed on a 25 to 21 vote. That actually, it was a very interesting conversation. As people kind of discussed the ambiguity within the state law with enforcing kind of gun-free school zones, as well as compliance with federal policy relative to New Hampshire legislation. So that one did pass despite the school board association's lack of support. And lastly, for the Dresden School Board, not support, it ultimately failed as we selected, but it did kind of invite an interesting conversation about the new organization that NHSBA might be joining, and kind of the implications for how local school boards could be involved with the process in making the bylaws, and what this new organization will look like in light of the state organization's withdrawal from the national organization. Kate, is there anything else you would like to add?
In relation to the last one that you're referencing, another specific nuance that was highlighted, I think, in conversation, was the decision by the by the New Hampshire Assembly to pull from the national, was based on them making a decision without consulting that body. But then when they pulled from the national, they didn't consult the body of school boards that make up the New Hampshire delegation. So just consistency in how we operate, if we're going to request that we get put into the decision-making process for one body, then we grant it to others.
All right. Interesting. That sounded like an interesting discussion, I'm sure. Any other questions or anything with regards to this? Thank you both for your attendance and for representing us. Sounded like it was, fairly interesting and fairly lively. All right, good. All right, proposed calendar of meetings, Superintendent.
Yes, this week, obviously, we don't have any more meetings this week, but no school on Friday. It's a PD day, so teachers will have a plan for professional development for the day. Next week, we have Indigenous Peoples' Day on Monday, which is no school to celebrate that holiday. 2 meetings that week. One is instructional meeting on the 11th, and on the 12th, capital facilities. Just note that the instructional committee meeting is on a Tuesday. Please take note of that so that we can accommodate the members of that committee. The following week, we have communication and policy and finance on the 19th.
We need to switch those, because remember the city is coming and they can't do the 19th.
Oh, right, she was gonna come to do the assessors, so what did we decide to, we're gonna switch
We said we'd leave the finance on the 17th, and then you gotta figure out what to do with communication. and policy.
communication and, but I have a problem with that because it's, the policy committee needs to have certain members present.
If you
So
wanna,
we,
wanna cancel the assessor, you just let me know.
20
I don't know.
24th?
I still need what they want.
can we do the finance committee after the executive committee on the 24th?
I have to check with the city. That's
Or we
all
could-
based on the-
Or we
If
could
they
do
can do,
communications
if they
and
can do it on the
policy.
17th, we can move communication and policy to the 24th.
Okay, we could do that, the 17th.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I have
And then
them.
move policy to the 24th. All right.
So, wait a minute, we're
All right.
moving finance?
Finance is not going to occur on the 19th.
Okay.
Take that
Finance will
off
be
your
on the
calendar.
17th.
All right.
And we're going to move that to the 17th. Finance will go to the 17th.
Okay.
And communication and policy will go to the 24th after the executive committee. How's that?
Jonathan, you can make Monday at 5:30? Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that you can make it.
Okay.
And
17th,
the
24th.
The 26th is a very important meeting for you. That is a special board meeting, and that will finalize the budget and in preparation for tax
I
assessment.
will not be here.
And we need 7 votes on that
Need
day.
It
Seven
is
votes.
7
important
votes.
that,
And I know I will be out of
Okay.
town that day.
Because if we don't have 7 votes to adjust this budget, you're looking at about $1 million to $1.5 million drop in the budget.
we will,
So that will significantly impact your 24 budget. I'm just letting you know.
okay.
So we're hoping
So it's
that
important that everybody
everybody be
who
there.
possibly can
Right.
attend the 26th. That is the one meeting that is absolutely imperative, that we have 7. Mr. Dunn, or Superintendent, do we need a negotiations committee?
Well, we
in
do.
here?
We do need to. We have some, just want to keep you updated. As you know, we've entered into negotiations with our CEAA, that is the Educational Associates organization, so we'll bring you up to date, speed on that. We could do the 19th negotiations this month.
We can?
19th for negotiations?
Yeah.
Could we do that?
Negotiations.
5:30?
No, okay.
All right, I'm gonna put that in, get that posted. Once I get these corrections, we repost all of our meetings, okay? Can you
Okay.
do that? Yeah, we need to do
Yeah,
finance anyway,
yeah.
so it won't.
Anybody else have any?
Good point, thanks, Jim, for the reminder. November, capital facilities on the first Wednesday, which is on the 2nd. The following week, you have a board meeting on the 7th. The 8th is a professional development day because it's election day and they'll be using our buildings. That's pretty traditional for you to have that day. And then on the 11th, this is the way the calendar falls, is Veterans Day on Friday, the 11th. Following week, Executive Committee and Instructional Committee. And the following week, right before the Thanksgiving break, hard to believe I'm saying Thanksgiving break, but Communication and Policy on Monday, the 21st.
I will point out that on the 9th, they will be canvassing the vote, so you will be getting a phone call from
Bridget?
So let her know what phone you will be available at on that day, or she will just keep calling you and calling you and calling you.
Yeah, we do need you all to sign off on that. Many districts have you in person and sign at that evening, so, and if the
vote comes in late, it could be a long night, so that's why we do it by canvassing the vote on the next day, after the
It-
official results are posted.
It would be helpful if the results were actually shared, like last year it was, could you sign off on something I hadn't seen?
And you didn't see them?
No,
Okay.
and I
She
got
signs it. I did not know
I
that.
got a little snotty response.
Technical term.
Swallow, Brenda.
Swallow, breathe.
Sorry.
I will make sure that you have the results.
Yes, thank you.
Before you approve them.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Sorry, I
With
did not know that.
that, are we completed with the calendar?
Yes, we are finished with the
I
calendar.
just
All
have
right.
one question, if you
Yes.
don't mind. Just for the city's sake, because they're asking what they want, what should they be presenting?
On on assessing, I think, the thought was similar to what you did a little bit last year, which was what, any rebalancing in the commercial versus residential, so that we have a deeper understanding of how much your home value is going up versus how much your commercial, and what is that impact going to be on taxpayers beyond the percentage increase in property tax rates.
So they have a presentation on their website, Understanding Assessing and Taxation. Do you want them to go through that process?
I don't think we need to understand the process of assessing. I think I'm more interested in how what we're doing here is impacted by the assessments that they have.
If they tell me we won't have that information for the 17th, you still want them to come?
No, if
No.
they don't have the information. But
But-
my memory is last year they had at least estimates that they had.
Yeah.
So
I
if
don't know
they're,
what their comfort level is on, that's why I asked
Yeah.
that question.
Yeah.
Because usually there's a whole formal letter that we send to you that comes out after the tax rate's set, after, because it's gotta go over to the Department of Revenue.
Right.
And that's where it's finalized.
I mean, I
So-
think it's more if they have any understanding of trends and what they're
Okay.
seeing, so that
I'll
we
ask
have a
them that,
better
and
understanding.
If they come back and say, we don't already have that, then I will postpone that, if you want.
Okay.
I'm just trying to be
Checking with
clear.
Tom. We're meeting with Tom, right?
Yeah, on
Next
the
week.
13th, yeah, but Sue Golden is the interim, and the new one was to start, I think, today.
Well,
I think we have something on the 24th. Oh, no, that was,
we moved, they could
If-
do the 17th.
But if they don't have the data on the 17th, would you want them to would you want to move the finance committee to the 24th, so they would have the data, or not?
Well, why don't we find out if they're gonna, if
Yeah,
the week
all right.
makes a difference?
My gut is they're gonna wait till they have that letter published,
Okay,
because
so-
I'm sure all their checkoffs and everything have to be done. I'm just,
All right,
that's
that's an
just my
option.
gut.
You may or
Because
may
I
not
usually
use that.
get nothing up until
Yep.
the night of the 26th. That MS1 is, that's the number, but all the assessment and the verbiage and what went up, they usually don't tell me that. Now, there's a new assessor, so maybe it'll be a different story. I think they started today, according to the paper.
Okay.
So, I don't know, but, all right, I'll find out.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. All right, with that, we will go to our second non-public, our second public comment session. Sorry, I'm reading ahead. Our second public comment session, any topic, is there anyone who has public comment that they would care to make? Not seeing anyone, we will move on. I don't think we have anything else with regards to the agenda. Superintendent, are we covered everything?
Yes, we have, sir.
Move to
That-
adjourn.
Okay, Mr. Parker makes the motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
second.
Kate
Kate already seconded. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.